Yo, what up, what up, what up? Welcome back to Pnoid Dudes. Man, how y'all doing? Man, it's Monday morning. I'll be real. I slept last night. And I probably should have slept last night. It's going to make this week difficult. But it is what it is. Anyway, so my boy TK Mao put an academic agent video in the video ideas. And I'm going to be honest with you. I'm sorry, TK. I'm going to have to pick your boy shit apart real quick. I apologize. But, I think it's a good discussion to have because it's most definitely something that I'm kind of interested in. So, without further ado, I'm going to let this dude, say what he says, and we're going to chime in and, do what we do. Let's get to it.
Yeah. Now, hello, everyone. Welcome. Today, I want to talk about something called the DuttonTurley Thesis. Now, I should be clear that I have just coined this term, and as far as I'm aware, it does not actually exist. I'm using this because both Ed Dutton and Steve Turley, both fellow academics, both generally on my side of things. I have nothing against either of them. I met Ed Dutton a week or so ago. Nice chap. Steve Turley, as people know, has been a tremendous influence on my advertising and marketing tactics on this channel. It means so much. So this is not an attack on either of them, but rather their basic idea of what's going to happen politically in the next few decades. And it goes something like this. Conservatives will outbreed liberals who are not having babies. Okay, so conservatives generally are breeding and liberals are not. They're getting abortions and so on and so forth. Studies show a strong correlation between the politics of parents and their children. And again, you can go to...
All right, so let's discuss this because this is important. Now, the reason why is not because of abortions or some life choices made when it comes down to it. What it is this is a rural and urban divide, right? And when it comes down to the reality of it. Basically, people who live in rural areas rural and suburban areas have room to be able to have children. People in urban areas do not have room to be able to have children. Like if you live on a farm, we'll take it to its very most basic essence. Children are farm equipment, right? They are literal, helpers to be able to move cows and bales of hay and, fucking feed animals and all these type of things. When you live inside of a city, children become a very expensive, loud, noisy, and needy fucking Saint Bernard. Very basic premise, right? This has very, very little to do with the reality of life choices between, liberals and conservatives. It's because of the fact that urbanites just have less children as a whole. If you were watching my last video, we put up that piece of Mencius Moldbug or, Curtis Yarvin's Gray Mirror, where he sat here and he told you about the Armigers who, don't really have good reproductive rates. And this is true whether we're talking about the West or whether we're talking about Asia or whether we're talking about the Middle East or whether we're talking about, South America. Any place where you have higher and higher rates of urbanization, you have less and less children. It's a very simple, basic ideology and understanding. And I don't know if academic agent knows this. I'm not sure, but hopefully he watches my video and he can, pick up on some new ideologies. It'd be great. You want to have a conversation? You can have a conversation. Get it done. Let's keep going.
Dutton or Turley, who return to this topic time and time again because it's one of their big ideas. Therefore, we just have to wait because in the long run, we will breed them out. Now, I should mention again, neither Dutton nor Turley has ever used the phrase breed them out. I am just making a play on my own little catchphrase, clear them out, which, of course, I borrowed from Jonathan Bowden. So this, you could call it the breed them out thesis or the DuttonTurley thesis. And in this video, I want to outline why I don't think it's going to be as easy as this, and why I don't think that this is a strategy that the right or the dissident right, whatever you want to call it, should adopt in the long run. So before I do that, let me just tell you what I'm willing to concede and what I accept, okay? So first and foremost, I accept, number one, this is happening, okay? So I accept that conservatives are outbreeding liberals, and, the data that Professor Dutton has outlined, all fine, okay? Second, I accept that there is a link between the political orientation of parents on their children, okay? So I accept that parents and children will be more similar and that there is a genetic component to this, which is a large part of Dutton's argument, okay? And I accept the idea that over time, this trend may make the population, quote unquote, more conservative. I'm willing to grant all of those things, and I'm not going to have an argument on that. However, and this is my chief contention, I contend nothing about this situation that Dutton and Turley outline will lead to a win. The DuttonTurley Thesis ignores fundamentally how politics works, and in particular, it ignores elite theory, which, as you know, I have just written and published a fantastic course that you should all buy, Foundations of Politics, if you want to learn more about elite theory. There is also, at some point, going to be a book as well called The Populist Delusion, which should be coming out at some point. But let us really understand what it is that I think that Dutton and Turley are ignoring, okay? The chief problem with the DuttonTurley thesis is that it has a majoritarian or populist assumption, okay? The DuttonTurley thesis may accurately describe something that is happening, but the idea this will call Western society to self-correct in some way is rooted in a democratic, majoritarian, or populist belief in how politics functions. The idea that a majority, or even a supermajority, will invariably translate into political power ignores how politics actually works, and in particular, elite theory. And actually, it's the number one lesson of elite theory that I like to call Mosca's law. Okay, this is Gaetano Mosca, who wrote a book called The Ruling Class. In 1895, it was republished in 1923, and then translated into English in 1939. And here is Mosca's law, okay? In reality, the dominion of an organized minority obeying a single impulse over the unorganized majority is inevitable. The power of any minority is irresistible as against each single individual in the majority, who stands alone before the totality of the organized minority. 100 men acting uniformly in concert with a common understanding will triumph over 1,000 men who are not in accord, and can therefore be dealt with one by one. Meanwhile, it will be easier for the former to act in concert and have a mutual understanding simply because they are 100 and not 1,000. It follows that the larger the political community, the smaller will the proportion of the governing minority to the governed majority be.
All right, so let's start digging into this, right? Because I kind of think this is important when it comes down to it, right? Let's talk about Machiavelli, right? This was actually in my last video too, right? So I've been pulling on Machiavelli recently because, let me be real, this quote is highly important. It's from the Discourses on Levy, right? I think it's from the third book, maybe. All right. For a majority readily becomes a monarchy readily becomes a tyranny, an aristocracy an oligarchy, while the democracy tends to degenerate into anarchy. So that if the founder of the state should establish any one of these three forms of government, he establishes it for a short time only, since no precaution he may take can prevent it from sliding into its contrary, by the reason of close resemblance to which, in this case, the virtue bears to the vice. So it's really simply put, you know what I'm saying, like democracy will break down to anarchy. This is why we have a republic, and you know what I'm saying, Machiavelli actually said, like, you know, a republic is where it's supposed to be. Now, the reason why, you know what I mean, he is standing here saying what he's saying is because of the fact that he thinks that Mosca is right. And let's be honest here about what Mosca was saying. Mosca was standing here talking about things during what we would call the Gilded Age, from, you know, I mean, the 1890s to the 1920s, right? Which is the period of history in the United States where we didn't have a centralized government. And, you know, I mean, basically the rich did whatever the fuck it is they wanted. They did, like, we did not have the ability as citizens we didn't have like the basic structure of government that we have today, right? It wasn't anywhere near as powerful, and it was much more Wild Wild West like. All right, but we're gonna go back to the video real quick, you know what I'm saying, and get down on this, because like I want him to get into like his reasons why he feels the way he feels about this, right? Because I think it's kind of important in the end of the day to really break this down. Let's get to it. All right.
And the more difficult will it be for the majority to organize for a reaction against the minority. That is Mosca's law. And hopefully the quicker among you will realize how Mosca's law applies to this situation of the conservatives breeding out the liberals. You know, there's more and more conservatives. There are fewer and fewer liberals. Is this going to cause the conservatives somehow to seize power and to set the tempo of the society? Well, according to Mosca's law, no. In fact, the smaller the number of liberals and the larger the number of conservatives, the easier it will be for the liberals to organize as this minority unit. Remember, he says, the larger the political community, the smaller will the proportion of the governing minority be to the governed majority. So you can see this principle actually could, according to Mosca's law, result in the liberals becoming more and more powerful because there are fewer and fewer of them. You know, the ratio of conservatives to liberals, well, if it keeps on shifting in the conservatives' favour, it keeps on concentrating the power of the liberal minority. I hope that makes sense. Those in power, in practice, this is, have ignored the majority for decades. Now, this was a fantastic study done by Martin Gilland and Benjamin I. Page. It was carried out in the University of Chicago in 2014. It's called Testing Theories of American Politics, Elites, Interest Groups, and Average Citizens. And they had a look at lawmaking in the USA across 1,779 policy issues, and they found that public opinion has a near zero impact. What does that?
All right, so let's get down on this, because I think this is really like where, you know what I'm saying, we're going to start really getting into this when it comes down to it, right? So, all right. I actually went and did some research on this, right? And actually this came out of Princeton. It didn't come out of Chicago. I just wanted to, you know what I mean, like put this out here. All right. So, but the rest of the researchers critiquing the paper found that like they went and they checked out this paper, you know what I'm saying? Because it has to be like, you know, peer reviewed. Everybody else, like in other colleges, went around and checked this out. They said, but the researchers critiquing the paper found that the middle-income Americans and rich Americans actually agree on an overwhelming majority of the topics. Out of the 1,779 bills in the Gilland's Page dataset, the majorities of the rich and middle class agree on 1,594. There are 1,616 bills on which the groups oppose, and 978 bills on both groups have favor. That means that the groups agree on 89.6% of bills. That leaves only 185 bills on which the rich and middle class disagree, and even then their disagreements are small. On average, the group's opinions gaps on 185 bills is 10.9 percentage points. So say 45% of the middle class might support a bill, but only 55.9% of the rich support it. Bashir, Brahman, Sorka, Wheelson found that on these 185 bills, the rich got their preferred outcome 53% of the time, and the middle class got what they wanted 47% of the time. The difference between the two is not statistically significant, and there are some funny examples in the middle class victories. For instance, the middle class got what they wanted on public financing of elections in all three 1990 surveys, including the Gillen's data. They opposed it while the rich favor it. That matches up with the more recent research showing that wealthy people are more supportive of public election funding. So let's have this conversation because I think it's important, right? You know what I mean? In the end of the day. Okay? All right, now let me get rid of this other stuff that's in front of here real quick. Right. This is really the problem. All right. In the end, when it really, gets down and dirty about things, it's colleges. All right. Back in, 1900 with Moscow with writings in paper, colleges were basically finishing schools for rich kids. Right. And only 2% of, the entire people in the United States actually went to college. Right. Today, it's, more like 65%. Right. And here's a graph to show you this. You know what I'm saying? Right. See, 2.7% in four more years of college. Right. Only 13% of the people had, high school diplomas. Right. Where in 2020, 91% have that, and then 37% have four more years of college. Right. And then 33% of females, in 2020. Right. This is important to understand. The reason why I bring this up is because of the fact that, the reason why, you have this, crazy march to the left is because all of the teachers who are educating your kids for 15 years or 13 years in, basic school, and then another, 2 or 4 on public school and public in universities, are all individuals who are in academia, who have been part of the system, and who are marching that way. That's why we are having the problem of how do you defeat this in the end of the day, right? And this is where I think people like Academic Agent are kind of failing, because this is really what we're talking about when we say the cathedral. Right. This is what this is. This is really simply put, universities are pumping teachers out, right, that are teaching all over the country. And elite universities are pumping out the curriculum to the rest of the universities, right, all over the country. Places like Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Georgetown, NYU are giving the curriculum out to everybody else in the country, right? And so, when all of it stands here, all of them end up with the same ideologies, and they're all going through the same social sciences programs, right? Which in social sciences is nothing more than sciences of government, right? You know what I mean? These things here are really what is affecting why it is that the things are continuing to march to the left. And so when you have the individuals in small areas are actually educating the people throughout the country for 13 years of your life, you're basically being indoctrinated into the liberal ideology for 13 years, right? And that's the part that's, needs to be broken. And that's why it is that, conservatives aren't really winning. It's because you're taking your children and you're putting them into a daycare for 8 hours a day for them to just be indoctrinated by people who are supportive and pro, institutions in the United States. That's really the issue. You know what I'm saying? And I only bring up the United States because, I'll be honest with you, I don't live in the rest of the world. You know what I mean? So that's the problem when it really comes down to it. That's why it is that on these big issues, that he brings up later on in the video, which I'm probably not going to play, right? When he starts talking about things like integration in schools and whatever it is, right? Why it is that, they just stand here and they change the opinion because of the fact that the individuals in these elite schools in the places like the Northeast, right, are the people who are training your media, and they're also training your governments, and they're also training your management class, and they're also training your lawyers, right? So you're going to fucking lose. In the end of the day, you're going to lose. As long as you continue to send your kids to these schools, as long as like these things are, how do I put this, left in place, you're gonna lose continually. And it has nothing to do with, you know what I'm saying, some, you know what I mean, some elite theory type of thing, right? It's more along the lines of we set up these institutions for us to be successful in this capitalist structure, right? So that, you know what I mean, we are able to like run, you know what I mean, businesses and logistics and all the things that go with it, and, you know what I mean, have all the stuff done so that we can have, you know what I mean, the amount of, how do I want to put it? Success, you know what I mean, on the world stage and be competitive, right? As long as you have that in place, you're going to lose. As long as you prioritize GDP number go up, this is what it's going to be. It's that fucking simple, right? So the question is, like, what do you want? Do you want to be, you know what I mean, like have your culture and your family and your community and like all the stuff that goes with that? Is that what you want? Or do you want to have GDP number go up, right? Because like you can live and be impoverished and, you know what I mean, not be educated, right? But have your family and be a human being. You can do that, right? But that means that like you're not going to be successful in the system, and you're going to be crime ridden and terrible because you're not going to like fit with the rest of the system. This is the problem that you're running into. And this is the thing that you're not having a conversation. This is like what you're not addressing. And this is really the problem at the end of the day. Because like you can't have both. It's that basic. You can't have, I'm going to prioritize capitalism and GDP number go up, right? And still have families and communities and conservative values. Right, because like if you want GDP number to go up, women need to have freedom. Single women spend 40% more on consumer goods than entire families. That's going to be prioritized in that system. It's that basic. Anyway, yo, look, Tom Pease with Pnoid News. You'll know how it works. Like, share, and subscribe. Academic Agent, want to get a hold of me? I'm on Discord. You know what I mean? That's pretty much the only thing I use. Link is in the description. You know what I mean? You can join the Discord. Holler at me. Holler at anybody in there. I got physicists and lawyers and doctors and all the chemists. Right. I try to keep smart people around me because you know how that operates, man. Listen, I love y'all motherfuckers. Y'all know what it is. Later. Peace.